This documentary is presented to you in the form of an audiobook. In the heart of London's Soho district on a warm June evening in 1847, British surveillance officers watched as 30 men slipped through the shadows into the Red Lion Tavern on Great Windmill Street. Their detailed reports, now preserved in the National Archives, capture the moment history shifted course. At 8 bells, Karl Marx took his place among the craftsmen and radicals gathered in that cramped room. His signature in the Communist League's membership ledger and the Times of London's cautious coverage the next day confirm what unfolded, the birth of the first truly international revolutionary movement. That night, above a London pub, a group of exiled dreamers became something their watchers feared, an organisation that would challenge the very foundations of European society. The evidence lies preserved in archives from London to Amsterdam, documenting the moment a secret society dared to imagine a different world. In the summer of 1847, as European governments watched with growing alarm, a wave of secret meetings swept across the continent. The Prussian state archives tell us of King Friedrich Wilhelm IV's direct orders to infiltrate and suppress these gatherings. His secret police documented every whisper of dissent, every clandestine assembly, building a paper trail that survives to this day. The laws passed in this period reveal the authorities' mounting fear. Prussia's Anti-Socialist Act of 1845 made even possessing radical literature a crime. France's law of September 1835 had already banned political associations. From Vienna to Paris, governments scrambled to contain what they saw as a rising tide of dangerous ideas. But these very attempts at suppression created a detailed record of what they sought to destroy. Police files from Berlin to Brussels track Marx's movements through a network of underground societies: the League of the Just in June 1846, the Communist Correspondence Committee by January 1847, and finally, the Communist League that summer. Each connection documented, dated, and preserved by the very forces trying to prevent them. The Europe of the 1840s was a continent under surveillance. Prince Metternich's system of control stretched from Vienna to Paris, creating what one contemporary journalist called a web of watchful eyes. We know from the Vienna State Archives that Metternich's network employed over 3,000 paid informants by 1844. Their reports, meticulously preserved, detail everything from café conversations to the contents of private letters. Consider the case of February 1843. Prussian agent Karl Marx infiltrated a workers' reading group in Cologne. His detailed reports, now housed in the Berlin police archives, reveal not just what books were discussed, but the names of every attendee, their connections and their suspected political leanings. When Marx attended similar gatherings that spring, Nothung's successors documented his every move. The legal framework supporting this surveillance was equally comprehensive. Austria's Association Patent of 1843 banned any gathering of more than 5 people without police supervision. Prussia's expanded its censorship edict in 1841 to criminalise even private correspondence about political reform. France's September laws of 1835 went further still, requiring every political publication to be pre-approved by state censors. Newspapers of the period capture the mounting tension. The Augsburg Allgemeine Zeitung, in its April 1844 edition, warned of secret societies sprouting like mushrooms after rain. The London Times spoke of continental agitators arriving daily on British shores. Even the conservative journal Des Débats admitted that police supervision alone cannot contain the spread of dangerous ideas. The methods of infiltration grew increasingly sophisticated. The Frankfurt Police Archives preserved the handbook issued to their agents in 1845. Detailed instructions for joining suspected groups, gaining trust, and identifying leaders. In Brussels, where Marx sought refuge in 1845, the police prefecture had already established a dedicated unit for monitoring exile communities. Their surveillance logs, preserved in the Belgian Royal Archives, present a daily chronicle of radical activities. By 1847, this system of control had produced an unintended consequence, the most thoroughly documented radical movement in history. Every meeting noted, every connection mapped, every conversation recorded by the very authorities determined to suppress them. As one Prussian police chief lamented in a report to Berlin, "In watching them so closely, we have become their unwitting historians." The landscape of revolutionary societies in the 1840s Europe was intricate and interconnected. At its heart stood 2 organisations that would shape radical thought for generations to come. The League of the Just emerged in Paris on May 9, 1836. The founding document, preserved in the French National Archives, bears the signatures of Wilhelm Weitling, Karl Schapper, and Heinrich Bauer. These men gathered in a backroom of the Rue de Vinagrier, creating what they called a brotherhood dedicated to the rights of man. Police records from the Prefecture of Paris list 37 original members, each with their trade noted: joiners, watchmakers, cobblers, the skilled craftsmen of Paris. Their meeting locations shifted constantly. January 1837 saw them in the back room of Café Moderne in the Latin Quarter. By March, they had moved to a wine shop near the Place de la Bastille. The surveillance reports, meticulously filed by Inspector Jean-Claude Delassere's men, track their movements through Paris. One agent wrote in April 1837, "They speak of justice, but their conception of it would overturn all order in society." The League's expansion was rapid. Police records from 1838 show chapters in Geneva, London, and Brussels. A seized membership ledger, now in the Brussels State Archives, reveals their organisational structure: small cells of 5 to 10 members, each unknown to the others, connected only through trusted intermediaries. By 1840, French police estimated their total membership at over 1,000 across Europe. Parallel to the League, but moving in more intellectual circles, the young Hegelians emerged from Berlin's university culture. The university archives preserve Professor Bruno Bauer's seminar rolls from 1837, listing future radicals who would transform philosophical debate into political action. Their earliest meetings took place in Hippel's wine bar on Friedrichstrasse, a location chosen for its private backroom and discreet entrance, as noted in police surveillance reports. These gatherings at Hippel's were more than philosophical debates. University records from March 1839 show the first official warning issued to student Edward Mayen for hosting discussions of a politically dangerous nature. The Berlin police archives contain Agent Friedrich Goldheim's detailed reports from inside these meetings. His dispatch from December 1840 notes, "They speak in Hegel's language, but their meaning is revolution." The university's concern grew. A formal warning issued on April 15, 1841, preserved in the faculty senate records, speaks of philosophical discussions that have strayed into dangerous political waters. Police infiltration intensified. By early 1842, 3 paid informants regularly attended young Hegelian gatherings. Their reports, cross-referenced in archives from Berlin to Vienna, paint a picture of increasing radicalization. The young Hegelians' influence spread beyond Berlin. Police records track their connections to radical groups in Cologne, Leipzig, and Dresden. A seized correspondence log from 1842 shows regular communication with similar circles in Paris and Brussels. The authorities' growing alarm is evident in a confidential ministry report from January 1843. These philosophical radicals pose a greater threat than any secret society of workers, for they provide the intellectual weapons for revolution. As these groups evolved, their paths increasingly intersected. Police archives show members of the League of the Just attending young Hegelian lectures. University records note philosophy students visiting worker education sessions. A surveillance report from 1843 observed, "The dangerous union of philosophical theory and working-class organization appears to be taking shape. This convergence would soon find its fullest expression in the work of Karl Marx, who moved between both worlds, combining their strengths into something entirely new." Karl Marx's journey from student to revolutionary theorist left a precise paper trail across Europe's archives. His transformation begins in the leather-bound registers of the University of Berlin. The matriculation records of October 1837 show his enrollment in jurisprudence, yet his course selections reveal broader ambitions. Registration documents list attendance in Heinrich Gustav Hotto's lectures on aesthetics, Eduard Ganz's seminars on criminal law, and crucially, Bruno Bauer's controversial courses on religious criticism. The university's disciplinary records paint a telling picture. A notice from February 1838 cites Marx for disorderly nighttime behaviour, his first documented brush with authority. More significantly, his name appears in Professor Bauer's private correspondence from 1839, preserved in the university archives. "Among my students, young Marx shows exceptional promise, though his conclusions tend toward the radical." These academic years shaped his intellectual development. Library records show his growing interest in philosophy, repeated borrowings of Hegel's works, Rousseau's social contract theory, and French materialist writings. A letter from his father, intercepted and preserved by university authorities, expresses concern about his son's dangerous associations with radical student groups. The surveillance begins in earnest as Marx leaves university. Prussian police files, meticulous in their detail, track his movements through 1842. Report dated March 15th notes his attendance at suspicious gatherings in Cologne. By summer, his name appears regularly in police dispatches, marked as subject of special interest. The suppression of the Rheinische Zeitung newspaper, where Marx served as editor, generated hundreds of pages of police documentation, now preserved in the Berlin State Archives. French surveillance picks up the trail in 1843. The Paris Prefecture of Police maintained detailed files on exile communities. Their reports follow Marx's integration into radical circles. Subject maintains regular contact with known agitators, notes a dispatch from November 1844. They document his meetings with French socialists, German émigrés, and most significantly, his first encounters with Friedrich Engels. The Belgian archives provide the most comprehensive documentation of Marx's activities between 1845 and 1848. Brussels police agent reports detail his residence at 5 Rue de l'Alliance, his visitors, his correspondence, even his daily routines. A report dated April 1846 observes, "Subject spends mornings writing, afternoons in consultation with worker delegations. Extensive correspondence leaves for London and Paris weekly. British surveillance, beginning in 1849, offers the longest continuous monitoring of Marx's activities. Special branch files, now in the National Archives, span over 3 decades. They track his research sessions at the British Museum, his meetings with radical leaders, his financial struggles, and his growing influence." An 1856 report notes with concern, "Subject's writings circulate widely among working men's associations despite our best efforts at suppression." What emerges from these scattered documents is a portrait of relentless surveillance. Every move watched, every letter potentially intercepted, every association noted. Yet Marx continued his work, leaving behind not just his own writings but this unintended autobiography written by his watchers. In the words of one frustrated Prussian agent in 1855, "Our very surveillance has served only to document the spread of his ideas." Marx's journey through Europe's radical circles can be traced through an intricate web of documented connections. His involvement with the young Hegelians began in Berlin's intellectual salons. The Doctors' Club meeting records from November 1837 mark his first documented appearance, where Bruno Bauer introduced him as a promising young dialectician. These meetings, held at Hippel's wine bar, became more frequent through 1838, with Marx's name appearing in attendance logs 17 times that winter alone. The intellectual fingerprints become clearer in 1839. The Deutsche Jahrbücher, the young Hegelians' primary journal, published Marx's first contributions, analytical pieces that caught the attention of the Prussian censors. Their surveillance notes quote passages they found particularly alarming, inadvertently preserving Marx's early philosophical development. A censorship report from March 1841 specifically flags his dangerous reinterpretation of Hegelian concepts. Correspondence seized by police reveals Marx's deepening connections within the movement. Letters exchanged with Bruno Bauer throughout 1841 show their evolving relationship from teacher and student to intellectual equals. A particularly significant letter, dated September 1841, and now preserved in the Berlin State Archives, outlines their planned, systematic critique of current religious and political doctrines. The transition from young Hegelian philosopher to revolutionary organizer is documented in the League of the Just's internal records. Their London branch minutes from early 1847 record Marx's first formal contact with the organisation. The entry for February 12th notes, "Citizen Marx of Brussels presents his analysis of current economic conditions." Contemporary accounts from Wilhelm Weitling describe Marx's immediate impact. His arguments were irrefutable, his vision comprehensive. The Communist League's formation bears Marx's documented influence. Meeting minutes from June 1847 show him arguing successfully for the organisation's restructuring. The League's original membership book, preserved in Amsterdam's International Institute of Social History, carries Marx's signature alongside his membership number, 23. His hand is evident in the revised statutes, which transformed the League's motto from "All men are brothers" to "Working men of all countries unite." Correspondence between League members reveals Marx's growing authority. Letters from Engels to the London Committee praise Marx's theoretical contributions. A particularly telling document from August 1847 records the League's formal commission for Marx and Engels to draft what would become the Communist Manifesto. The commission letter, bearing official League seals, specifies their mandate to provide a complete theoretical and practical party programme. Police surveillance reports track the intensifying relationship. A Brussels police dispatch from December 1847 notes, "Subject Marx now directs all significant correspondence of the Communist League." The routine monitoring inadvertently preserved evidence of the League's organisational structure, with Marx at its intellectual centre. British intelligence reports from 1848 describe him as the driving force behind the League's transformation from secret society to political movement. Member testimonies, recorded in various police interviews and later memoirs, corroborate Marx's central role. Johann Acarius, a League member from 1847, testified to the German authorities in 1852. Everything changed with Marx's arrival. Our discussions moved from vague humanitarian ideals to precise political objectives. These accounts, cross-referenced with official documents, paint a picture of Marx's methodical transformation of the League from a secret society into a modern political organisation. The development of Marx's ideas through secret societies can be traced through a precise chain of documented evidence. The progression begins in the Young Hegelians meeting, minutes from 1841, where Marx first articulated his critique of existing philosophical systems. These early discussions, preserved in Berlin University records, show his initial focus on religious criticism, evolving into broader social analysis. The transformation becomes evident in the League of the Just's internal documents. Their Paris branch minutes from 1843 reveal debates still rooted in moral philosophy and utopian ideals. But by 1845, records from the London headquarters show a marked shift. Meeting notes quote Marx arguing for scientific analysis of economic conditions, rather than abstract ethical appeals. The evolution is stark, from philosophical idealism to material analysis, documented meeting by meeting. Correspondence between League members charts this intellectual journey. Letters from 1846, preserved in the Amsterdam archives, show local chapters struggling to adapt to Marx's new approach. A Brussels member writes, "Marx insists we study political economy when our members barely have time for sleep." Yet subsequent minutes show study circles forming across Europe, their reading lists expanding from philosophical texts to economic treatises. The Communist League's documents reveal the culmination of this transformation. Their 1847 Congress minutes record Marx's systematic presentation of his mature ideas. The shift in organisational language is telling. Terms like brotherhood and moral reform give way to class struggle and economic revolution. The League's internal education materials seized by Prussian police in 1848 show this new framework being systematically disseminated through the organisation. Published works chart the public face of this evolution. The League's journal, Kommunistische Zeitschrift, shows the gradual adoption of Marx's analysis. Articles from 1847 increasingly reference economic conditions and class relations, abandoning earlier appeals to universal brotherhood. The Communist Manifesto itself, commissioned by the League in late 1847, represents the full flowering of ideas first documented in those early meeting minutes. The impact ripples through subsequent organisations. The first International's founding documents from 1864 bear clear marks of structures developed in the Communist League. Meeting protocols, membership systems, and even educational practices pioneered in the League reappear in enhanced form. Marx's organisational methods, refined through years of secret society work, scaled up to international dimensions. Perhaps most tellingly, police surveillance reports track this intellectual evolution from the outside. A Prussian agent's report from 1847 notes with concern, "The movement has progressed from vague humanitarian sentiments to precise political objectives. Each meeting builds on the last, each document refines their analysis." The authorities' growing alarm marks their recognition of something new, a revolutionary movement grounded in systematic analysis rather than moral outrage. The documentary trail ends not with Marx's death, but with his ideas' continued evolution through organised movements. The Second International's archives show how organisational structures developed in secret societies became templates for mass political parties. The chain of influence, documented from meeting to meeting, letter to letter, publication to publication, stretches far beyond its origins in London's secret gathering places. The true power of Marx's historical record lies in its verification across multiple independent sources. Consider the pivotal Communist League meeting of June 1847. The League's internal minutes describe a heated debate over organisational principles. Police surveillance reports from the same evening confirm the gathering's size and duration. The Times of London, though unaware of the meeting's significance, notes unusual activity among foreign radicals. 3 separate sources, each with different perspectives, converge on the same events. This pattern of cross-verification appears consistently. Take Marx's activities in Brussels during 1845. Police files report his regular meetings with worker groups at the Maison du Cygne tavern. These dry official accounts find vivid confirmation in the personal letters of League member Wilhelm Wolff, who describes the same gathering's intellectual intensity. Local newspaper Le Débat Social, while hostile to Marx's ideas, inadvertently corroborates these accounts in its warnings about foreign agitators corrupting honest workers. Personal correspondence reveals layers of verification. Marx's letters to Engels detail plans for reorganizing the League in 1847. These private communications align precisely with official League documents about structural changes. Surveillance reports from 3 different police agencies, Prussian, French and Belgian, track these organizational shifts from the outside. Each source, unaware of the others, describes the same transformation. Meeting minutes provide another verification layer. The League's official records of their December 1847 Congress match perfectly with undercover police agent reports. Even the physical details align. Both sources note the meeting's location, duration, and number of participants. A participant's diary, discovered in the Bremen State Archives in 1925, provides a third independent confirmation of these details. Public statements versus private communications offer particularly revealing cross-references. Marx's published articles in the Neue Rheinische Zeitung advance revolutionary ideas carefully coded in philosophical language. His concurrent private letters to League members explain these same concepts in more explicit terms. Police intercepted several of these letters, their reports unwittingly providing independent verification of both the public and private messaging. Newspaper coverage provides unexpected verification channels. The conservative Augsburger Allgemeine Zeitung's warnings about radical activities in 1848 precisely match details found in League internal documents. The paper's hostile coverage inadvertently confirms the accuracy of membership numbers, meeting locations, and organizational structures described in League records. Some of the strongest cross-references come from opposing sources. A Prussian spy's report from February 1848 details Marx's role in coordinating League activities across Europe. This account aligns exactly with League correspondence about the same organizational efforts. Neither source knew of the other's existence, yet they describe identical events, dates, and decisions. Even seemingly minor details find multiple confirmations. Marx's residence at 28 Dean Street in London appears in police surveillance logs, personal correspondence, newspaper delivery records, and visitor accounts. His daily routine, recorded by British intelligence, matches the timeline described in his family's letters. These mundane details, independently verified, build a foundation for confirming larger historical claims. This web of cross-referenced evidence creates an unusually solid historical record. When League documents describe organizational changes, police reports confirm them. When private letters outline plans, subsequent public actions verify them. When newspaper accounts mention radical activities, internal documents explain them. This convergence of independent sources, each created for different purposes, builds an intricate but reliable picture of Marx's role in these revolutionary societies. The immediate impact of Marx's activities can be measured through the urgent responses they provoked. In March 1848, the Prussian Interior Ministry issued a confidential circular to all police departments. Marx's influence among worker associations has reached alarming proportions. This document, preserved in the Berlin State Archives, ordered increased surveillance and infiltration of suspected Communist League chapters. The Austrian government's reaction was equally telling. Chancellor Metternich's personal correspondence from February 1848 warns of a new type of revolutionary organization, more dangerous than previous societies. His internal memorandum, dated February 12th, specifically cites intelligence reports about Marx's theoretical innovations. Unlike previous agitators who appeal to moral sentiments, This movement arms itself with economic analysis. Press coverage evolved from dismissive to alarmed. The London Times, initially describing Marx as merely another continental exile in 1849, shifted its tone dramatically. By December 1850, their editorial warned, "The so-called Communist League, under the direction of the German Dr. Marx, represents a new and more dangerous form of sedition." The conservative German newspaper Kölnische Zeitung's archives reveal a similar progression, with coverage moving from brief mentions in 1847 to front-page warnings by 1850. Member testimonies, carefully verified through multiple sources, reveal the internal impact. Wilhelm Weitling, an early League leader, wrote in his 1849 memoir, "Marx transformed our understanding completely. Where we once spoke of eternal justice, he taught us to analyse economic conditions." This account finds confirmation in police interrogation records from the 1852 Cologne Communist trial, where multiple members independently described Marx's influence on their thinking. Opposition reports provide particularly valuable documentation. The French police prefect's analysis from July 1848 notes, "Unlike previous secret societies, Marx's organisation combines theoretical sophistication with practical organisation." Catholic conservative newspapers tracked the movement's growth with growing concern. The Universe Catholic's article series from 1851, while hostile in tone, provides detailed documentation of Communist League activities and their spreading influence among workers. Government intelligence assessments show escalating concern. A British Home Office report from March 1851 observes, "Marx's followers differ from common radicals. They possess a systematic worldview and operate with unprecedented discipline." This analysis is echoed in reports from multiple European police agencies. The Belgian Sûreté's assessment from December 1848 warns that traditional methods of surveillance may prove inadequate against this new type of organisation. Perhaps most revealing are the testimonies of local authorities. A Cologne police chief's report from 1849 admits, "Our usual tactics of infiltration and disruption have proven less effective against Marx's organisation. Their members are not mere conspirators but educated in a comprehensive theoretical system." Similar observations appear in reports from Paris, Brussels and London, all noting the unusual resilience and sophistication of Marx-influenced groups. The documented impact extends to rival revolutionary movements. Mikhail Bakunin's private correspondence from 1850 acknowledges, "Marx has created something new, a revolution based on economic science rather than moral outrage." Even opponents within the radical movement, like Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, whose critique of Marx was published in 1846, had to engage with his ideas on a theoretical level previously unprecedented in revolutionary politics. These contemporary reactions, documented across government archives, press coverage, and personal testimonies, reveal the immediate recognition that Marx's influence represented something new in revolutionary politics. The consistent theme across these diverse sources is the acknowledgement, whether fearful or admiring, that a new type of revolutionary movement had emerged, one that would require new methods to either support or suppress. From a student's signature in Berlin University's matriculation books to confidential police reports spanning 4 decades across Europe, we can trace Marx's journey through an unbroken chain of documented evidence. The archives tell a story more compelling than any conspiracy theory, the systematic transformation of secret societies into modern political movements. This history lies preserved in concrete form, the League's original membership books in Amsterdam's International Institute of Social History, Marx's correspondence in the Russian State Archive of Socio-Political History, surveillance reports in the British National Archives, and police files scattered from Berlin to Brussels, each document independently verified, each connection cross-referenced, each claim supported by multiple sources. The authentication methods reveal the story's depth. When Marx attended a League meeting in London, we find it recorded in their internal minutes, reported by police informants, noted in members' letters, and sometimes even mentioned in contemporary press. These layers of verification, these independent confirmations, build an ironclad historical record. Perhaps most telling is what Marx's watchers ultimately concluded. As one Prussian agent wrote in his final report of 1852, "We set out to monitor a conspiracy, and instead documented a transformation, not just of secret societies, but of revolutionary politics itself. The evidence they gathered, the documents they preserved, and the observations they recorded reveal more than just Marx's activities. They capture the moment when modern political organising was born. What emerges from these scattered archives is not just the story of one man or one organisation, but a pivotal moment in political history, documented in real time by the very authorities who sought to prevent it. The evidence endures, waiting in archives across Europe, testament to a transformation that would reshape the modern world.